We're back here on meangreensports.com. It's game week. North Texas takes on the Longhorns later this week as they head down to Texas to take on the Texas Longhorns. And we're visited with North Texas head coach Dan McCarney. It was a very good fall camp for you, and we're time now to release the depth chart as North Texas will unveil who will go down to Austin and who will see a lot of the action. And Coach, we'll begin as we have all the names and we have all the different position groups and the different battles that took place during the fall camp and dating all the way back to the spring. We'll start with the special teams groups, and you got a lot of new faces on there, but you got a lot of familiar ones as well.
We do, Bobby, and as this whole board will reveal, the most competitive camp I've had since I've been here. A lot of these decisions were just made recently after all of spring football and 20-some evaluations here in camp. So the good news is we're going to go to practice this week in game week of Texas with the same guys we began camp with a few weeks ago. So we've had a lot of good physical work, a lot of heat, obviously, but very, very competitive. So let's start with our place kickers up here. It's been a great battle. Zach Paul, as you know, I put on scholarship last year at the end of the year. He's been beaten out by Trevor Moore, our true freshman. No question, he's our best PAT field goal guy. Both of them got to be ready, but Moore's won that battle. Mosick and Keena, really outstanding battle. Both of them we anticipate will punt in the game, hopefully not too many times, Poppy. But Keena definitely has the strongest leg. Mosick definitely has value with our punt team in certain situations. But Eric Keena is one of the most improved guys on our football team, a guy that I put on scholarship just a few short days ago. Kick return, James Jones, Carlos Harris. Carlos, a familiar name, obviously, as a return guy. But James Jones has really had a great camp back there. We're going to use those two back on kick returns. Punt return, it's Carlos Harris, number one, taking Breland Chancellor's position from last year. And then D. Kidsey will be his backup. Both those guys have done a really good job. They have a lot of value in our punt return. It's courage, it's talent, it's concentration, catching the football, and then do everything we can to maintain the great tradition we started with our punt return team from a year ago. Deep snapper, both Division I guys we can win with, no doubt about it. Blake Dunham will start the game. It really done a heck of a job in coming off the injury from last year. Tony Johnson stepped in, earned a scholarship, snapped for us in most of our games last year. Blake got hurt. Both of them can play, but Blake will start the game. And then our holder will be Blake Mosick anytime that we get into those situations. So best competition we've had, I think the best talent assembled when you start looking at our special teams.
We slide down and we'll begin with the defense, and we'll start with the secondary, perhaps the most experienced group you have coming back. You do have to replace Marcus Trice, but you see a lot of familiar names up there on the secondary.
There are, Bobby, and 3 starters return, and all those guys have improved. All of them have had really good camps. Kenny Byers, excellent camp. Obviously named one of our captains. What a story, Poppy. Walk on to captain, and he deserved every bit of it. Has such great respect from everyone in the whole program. Chad Davis has really come on, and we'll be backing him up. James Jones, excellent camp. Real good battle with Zach Whitfield. Both those names very familiar to the Mean Green fans. But James will be our starting corner. Sheldon Wade, one of the most improved guys on our football team, no question about it. Put him on scholarship at the end of spring ball, but he's much improved. Maybe the most improved player on our football team since spring football. Came out of spring solid, but he's taken it to another level, and he had to because this guy right here, Keyshawn McLean, is going to have a great career at North Texas. True freshman in the 2-deep, earned it not by injuries but by performance and consistency. And what receiver in Conference USA doesn't know about Laramie Lee? Every one of them knows about him, respects him, and backed up by John Shalacy. So a good blend of experience with 3 starters coming back and yet more depth than we've had in the past, I think.
So you go from an experienced secondary, and we head down the road, and we look at a defensive line that has to replace all 4 starters from last year, and a linebacking core that also has to replace 2 starters.
No question about it. In our front right now, Poppy, we anticipate playing between 8 to 10 defensive linemen in that game. You know, I started talking about that last spring, but these guys have earned it, and we're going to have constant rotation, and we think numbers with the guys that we have is going to be a real important piece of the puzzle for our defense this year. And there may not be a great one, super one, unbelievable defensive lineman, but these guys have all really taken upon themselves to improve their weaknesses, get better, and get in rotation. So Link obviously has been around a long time. He and Austin Orr have done some really, really good things inside, like that rotation, like that depth. Sid Moore and Watson, both those guys right now are doing some really, really positive things. Those 4 will man that interior, and all 4 of them will definitely play and rotate, and maybe possibly a 5th. Zero Wallace is another guy that I think you'll see in the game. So there's probably going to be 5 interior defensive linemen that will play against Texas. Polk and DeLonga, Chad Polk's an undersized guy, but he's not undersized with heart. He's not undersized with his motor and how hard he plays. He and DeLonga will be manning that one defensive end position. Mace, a senior, Jay Roberts, another underclassman that's really improved. Those 4 guys you'll see out there. And then a young man named Tillman Johnson that our fans probably recognize the name that we signed in this last year's class. He's another defensive end that we think may end up working into the rotation. So it gives us a lot of guys that have to be ready, have to be focused, have to give us plays. And then when we talk about competitive excellence, Poppy, that's about being ready to play winning football when your number is called. And we think there's going to be a lot of numbers called in that group of that defensive line. Linebacker, obviously, led by Derek Akune, elected a captain. No question, one of the best players on this entire team. He was last year as a junior, and he's even improved more as a senior. He and Minor will take care of that outside linebacker position. Seth Ellis and Jamal Marshall, both of them have improved. They've both been very athletic in their careers, very undersized, and both of them have gained the weight that we asked them to in official weigh-in the night of the mock game, and both of them hit their goal weights. And they're both guys that can play in space. They can run. And they're very athletic guys. Freddie Scott and Wallace have had a real good battle, but Scott will start the game. You'll definitely see both of those guys playing at that Mike linebacker position.
Well, that's a look at the North Texas defense and special teams. We now shift to the offense, and why not begin with the offensive line? 4 of the 5 starters back, and you also have another guy in Sean McKinney who's very experienced, might be one of the most experienced offensive lines you've ever been around.
Really have, and our team obviously is loaded with lots of new faces and new jersey numbers when the fans start watching us either in person down in Austin or on national television as the season starts this week. But you're not going to need new numbers out there in the offensive line for the most part. 4 returning starters. Sean McKinney's won that other 5th spot. I can just tell you this much. Their focus, their physicalness, their pride, their work ethic is as good as I've ever been around in that offensive line. They took on the personality of their position coach, Mike Simmons, long ago. Mike's one of the great competitors as a coach that I've ever been around, and those guys all play the game the way he wants them to, and the way that I like to see him play as a head coach. So really like those guys. Sean McKinney's lost a lot of weight, as we all know, but you can imagine still he's in the best shape of his life. He's lost a lot of weight, and he's still 350 pounds. So, but he's had a really, really fine camp. Clayton, a walk-on at center, has really come on. He missed some time with some injuries, but he's back full go now. Micah Thompson really showing a lot of improvement. Travis Eller, we moved inside to either center or guard. He can play either one of those positions. Renfro as a real valuable backup. So we really do have some depth that we feel good about for the first time in the offensive line since I've been here. And then a great story here, and Michael Bonagou, another guy that we put on scholarship, transferred from a Division II school. Here he is in the 2 deep, getting ready to go play Texas on national television, and I just got through awarding him a scholarship. So really love the depth, the competition, and the way this offensive line has come together in camp.
And before we slide over to the skill positions, tight end. I know you love the tight end, blocking, catching, and you have a lot more options out there. Once again, you have Marcus Smith and Tanner Smith and a lot of variety, so to speak, in your tight ends again.
Well, we lost some guys that were very experienced tight ends from a year ago, no question about it, Poppy. But Marcus Smith has played a lot of football, almost 400 snaps a year ago. So even though he wasn't a starter, he was a valuable contributor to our season a year ago. Tanner Smith is one of those guys you say utility. Well, what does that mean? That means he can play a lot of different positions. We can put him in a lot of different places in our offense, and he'll come in there and do a very, very solid job. So I like both those guys. Loving has improved. He hasn't done anything in his career up to this point. We think he'll have a chance to contribute and done some very positive things so far in camp. So tight end position right now looks very healthy.
All right, we'll head down and check out the skill position. And obviously the big question coming into the 2014 season was who's going to replace the Heart of Dallas Bowl MVP, Derek Thompson. As we look up, there was a great battle between Josh Greer and Andrew McNulty, and it appears Greer is going to get the nod.
He is, and it's been a tremendous battle. There's no doubt about it. As you go out and evaluate quarterbacks, obviously there's so many intangibles, probably, that you're looking for: character, leadership, toughness, mental toughness, and physical toughness, integrity, being coachable, all those things. And both of those guys have all kinds of those kind of attributes, believe me. But in the end, Josh Greer made more plays. He made more throws for big plays. He made more throws for touchdowns. He was just a little bit more consistent than McNulty was. Started way back in March all the way through camp, but it's been very, very, very close. Both of them want to be starters. Only one of them can roll out there with the #1 offense the first play of the season, and that will be Josh Greer. But obviously Andrew McNulty knows he's got to be ready. Here you just see in the position, at that position, what can happen. Here just a few nights ago, we all hear about and read about Sam Bradford being hurt again with the torn ACL, second time in 2 seasons. that position, guys can get hurt sometimes. So be ready. Just like Dejon Williams has got to be ready, and he's got to grow up and mature and be ready to help our football team as the number 3 right now. But Greer's really stepped it up and done some very positive things.
You look at the running back position, and I know you love to run the ball and pound and ground, and you have Reggie Pegram back from his injury, Antoine Jimerson, but the stable of running backs you have is pretty deep.
It is, and Reggie, of course, what a story that is, coming off the ACL, reconstruction of the knee, had a tremendous camp, missed spring ball, obviously, Poppy, but he's back stronger than ever. Jimerson, I think, is in the best shape of his life. He's real, and he needed to be to challenge for that number 1, but Reggie's won the number 1 spot. Jimerson will definitely play. Fans will really enjoy watching our 2 new freshmen, and they're not going to be out there for 25 carries in the first game. But with Wilson and Ivory, both those guys, we've decided not to redshirt, to play them, to help our offense this year be as effective as we can be. So we've got some real good depth and competition going there at running back.
And finally, wide receivers, you have to replace Breland Chancellor and Darnell Smith, your top 2 receivers from last year. But I think people will be surprised at how good and how deep this wide receiver core can and will be this year.
Well, Mike Grant, obviously my receivers coach, has done a heck of a job, and there's a tradition there of success and consistency and great continuity in that group of trust. And let's go be a strength. Let's not be a weakness. Let's not hold this offense back. Let's be one of the real shining stars of the whole football team at this wide receiver position. Skip Caldwell, former walk-on, really done some good things, stepped it up. Carlos Harris, our fans all know about him, one of the best third down receivers in the Conference USA last year, and he's a more complete player, I think, right now than any time in his career. D. Kidsey, tremendous camp, really come on. He's stronger than he's ever been. He's playing with great confidence. And then you look at the backups with Smiley, who we redshirted, D. Terrell, who transferred from Texas. Don't think he won't be excited about playing this week. And then Teagard, a senior, very valuable guy. So all those guys are going to be in the mix. They will all play against Texas, and we feel like that wide receiver position's in good hands.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time. We look forward to seeing you at Texas and all throughout the year.
Thanks, Poppy. Go Mean Green.
Dan McCarney joining us as North Texas will begin the season down in Austin this week against the Texas Longhorns.